Roll call.
Russ Arcand,
Here.
Dan Ruck,
Here.
Jeremy Hall,
Here.
Jay Luke,
Here.
and Keith Karpinski.
Here.
We have everybody here today.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
We had it has to be moving number 9 down below number 12. So that we get the updates before we discuss board priority. Everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, all's in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Carries. How about our minutes from our April 9th meeting? Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all's in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Are there any public comments? All right. Any supervisors not seated as committee members that have any information for this committee? Halfway through our. All right, how about our library plan resolution 1425? We had some questions on it at county board and we sent it back to the. Did we get the changes that the board was looking for?
I think so. I pretty much just leaves it open.
We have to make a motion to move it to county board from this committee.
With or without a recommendation?
With a recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Any further discussion? Favor?
Aye.
How about our discussion regarding the 26 budget? We'll be leading that.
I'll do that. And I'll try to make sure I don't get into the priorities until we let the administrator do that later. This is a change in the agenda.
Last year.
This may sound a lot like last year. We're going to give you an early view of the budget for 2026. Lots subject to change. Changes at the federal level and the state level. We don't know exactly what they are, but we're starting to see some of the contours now. But our budget is our plan, and we can only plan with the information that we have. But everything that I'm going to relay to you today is subject to change. That's something I say every year. Can we go to the next slide, which is the board priority? Yeah. Just briefly want to remind folks of what the board priorities set in 2023 were. And these will carry through the budget year. Sometime in the 2026 year, the administrator will lead an exercise to reestablish priorities, but these are the ones we're working with right now. I'll merely point out that we have done some work around a couple of these, expanding broadband access. The board decided to move some of those funds back into for general use last year. We've got that housing initiative going, but we haven't had a lot of uptake in that. But these, as listed, are the priorities for 26. Can we go to the next slide, please? I'm going to talk a little bit about revenue. Again, early. Sales tax, and the administrator may want to discuss this a little bit when we talk about board priorities in a few minutes. It's been up and down. We generally budget sales tax on the last year that's complete, which would be by the time we get around to this 2024, and we were just a little over 5 million. We're trending above that right now, but I don't think it's the year to be particularly aggressive in budgeting for sales tax revenue. There was a big bump this last month. Might have been people stocking up. being a little bit worried about some of the goods and their availability or their pricing in the future, but we had a nice bump last month. We'll keep our eye on that. We have this lever to increase the levy. It's net new construction, but it doesn't move around that much. 250, 350 each year. On a budget of 74 million, it's not a lot of dough. We are in the process of preparing to borrow the money for the 2025 budget that was passed by the board back in November. We decided to take the money on late in the year rather than early, so we didn't have a lot of interest expense. But we're planning to bond again for capital projects. That would be a loan taken out in 2026. Not seeing a lot of change in investment income, which means there's not a lot of opportunity to pull more out to do more. We think that's going to be pretty flat. We are seeing some reductions in grants already. And the part of our organization that's dependent on grants that's probably the most volatile area of operations that we've got in terms of funding. I know that our people are paying a lot of attention to what's going on at the state and federal level with that, and letting administration know when they see any kind of changes. And we're not seeing a lot of new opportunities to change the fee structure. We can only charge for the cost of delivery, and so we're not seeing a lot of revenue growth there. We go to the next slide, unless there's questions about revenue. On the expense side, a few years ago, we did a wage study. We realized we were behind with our wages. We caught up. We need to stay with the market. We are currently modeling a small market adjustment, which employees would get January 1, and then a merit increase on July 1, likely smaller than last year. I've been watching the inflation numbers. They're pretty good right now. So we're currently modeling raises for regular employees, non-GAM, non-WPPA, to be a little less than last year. It's not noted on this slide, but we know we'll be working with WPPA, the union, starting next month. That's it's been a 2-year kind of contract. So we have to think about 2 years for that one when we do this budget. I know the administrator has been encouraging division leadership and department leadership to look at non-employee operating expense, try to ratchet it down. Our capital expense is likely to be tied to whatever we bought for. So that's kind of the expense side of things. The upshot is on the next page. You can read it on your slide. We're going to have increased expenses. We don't have a lot of offsetting revenues. It's going to be a challenging budget environment. Any questions on that? We'll have the staffing plan modeled by the end of the month, and that's the first big moving part we get. We're going to talk about health fund in a minute, but we've also got our preliminary increases for health plan. I'll get into more detail. Any questions on the early view on the budget? I think I'm going to be up here for a few more minutes, sir. If we're going to skip number 9 and go to health fund, then I think we want to go a couple slides forward. How about there? You can just go to the next slide. Yep. I'm going to give you a picture in a second, but here's the story. Just a few years ago, we had a really healthy health fund. In fact, it was so healthy that we decided we need to spend it down, purposefully spend it down, because you really aren't supposed to hold on to employee money that was pulled in for health-related expense and not spend it. What happened was we got into an unplanned world of healthcare expense where our claims went up really significantly, and you'll see the graph in a second. Our last good year in terms of bringing in more money than we spent was 2021. That's pretty far in the rearview mirror. So if you go to the next slide, please. The first 5 groupings are actuals, and the last 2, which are a little fuzzy, slightly grayed out, are the 2025 budget and 2026. That red curve is really interesting. Now, we were at just over 4 million in health expense. And in 2024, we got to over 9 million. And our revenues weren't keeping up with that. If you go back and look at 2021, which I said was the last good year, we were bringing in more revenue than we were spending back then. But then we had a number of high claimants, and we had a stop loss situation where our stop loss premium was getting jacked every year because we were exceeding what we were supposed to be spent, or they were supposed to be spending. So last year about this time, we got what we thought was some good news. We thought some of those cases had moderated. But it turns out when we get the actuarial analysis for 2026, about a month ago, they're like, yeah, that was a mistake. Things are going to stay bad through 2026. So we're in a position right now where we're not bringing in enough to cover our expenses. And I don't see, looking into the future, that changing, certainly not for 2026. We're asking for an actuarial deeper dive from our consultants to see if there are levers that we can pull. But we have a lot of people that aren't healthy and we have to take care of them. The next slide, I think, is kind of the money slide, the healthcare expense versus the fund balance. I know a number of board members like, what happened to the health fund? I thought it was at, $8 million. It was. But that cascade of expense really caught up with us. And you've got this perfect X where our balance is going down because our expenses are going up. You can see that the 2026 projection is not favorable. It's below the line. Well, I don't think you hire us to do nothing. So if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about what we're working on. We see sort of three big options for the health fund. One is to tune, and we've been tuning. But to tune even more, we could ask our employees to contribute more. Our consultant, for the second year in a row, advised us to increase premiums by more than 50%. We might as well not give raises. We thought that was not a good thing to do, but now we're in a tough situation. We raised 12% 2 years ago, 15% this year. But I don't see us going to 55 or 56% for an increase. We can redouble our cost containment strategies that might work. This to me is the weakest option, tuning the plans, because we've been trying to do this. We're in conversation with our providers around narrowing our network. So just imagine that instead of having a plan that allowed you to see specialty clinics, get tertiary care at Mayo, not an option anymore. That would cut out a lot of expense, probably tick a lot of people off too. But we could have a high expense plan and a low expense plan. That's one thing we're looking at, kind of offer different health plan options. And then there's a third option, which is just to get out of the healthcare business and have people a check to buy their own. A lot of firms are doing that now. Some public entities are doing it. It's not a great situation. And we will be updating you as we learn more from our experts and we get closer to a decision. Any questions about that?
A lot of decision to be made. Sorry, Russ.
Didn't we have a stop loss? Or don't we have a stop loss?
We do, and it covers us everything over $200,000 per member expense. But what the insurance company does is they just look at how much they paid last year and they jack your stop loss up. So they've done that 3 years in a row. And so really all it does is it delays what we pay. The other thing that's going on is everything up to $200,000 is that's just us. And the number of folks that are above 75,000 in a plan year expense up to 200,000 has gone up. And that really hurts us because we don't have any coverage. That's just us paying out of pocket, basically. Yeah, the stop loss is, I guess there's no free money anywhere.
Yeah, a lot of tough decisions to be made to try to rein this back in, taking a deep dive and seeing what these claimants are and what's on the horizon. They say it's a 7-year average. You have one bad year, we've had 3. And coming back on that and how we can balance that out with these 3 options. We're still waiting on a couple more sets of data to see, how we're gonna do that, but again, tough decisions to be made. With that, the healthcare expense, as you see in the news, has gone up, so it's not easy to get to $200,000 in expense if someone has an operation or anything. So, it's a tough market and we're looking at all avenues on it.
In all fairness, it's not just here. It's
No.
all industry today. We're dealing with it in every aspect. And in essence, healthcare funding by an organization is a raise.
Mhm.
Call it what it is.
Right, it's a benefit.
Exactly. Painful, but it's real.
Are you okay if I move on to the next agenda item? The general fund update? All right. Picture. Better news here. This is from the 2023 audit. We're just finishing up the 24 audit. We don't, but the story here is the same story you heard back in November because it's the same data. Roughly $30 million in the general fund. Half of that's reserved. My eyeballs are not good. About 6 million previously committed and around 7 million available. Now that's, subject to any budget amendments that come through. We haven't had any yet. And then that's a pre-audit estimate. So some working capital, which is a great thing. The county's in a good position. Some of us will be on a ratings call next week with Moody's. Well, we're going to explain the financial situation of the county. And that was all gloom and doom about the health fund. But other than the health fund, the county's in really good shape. And that's it's a good thing for the county taxpayers, and it's a good thing for the supervisors because there's some capital to work with. I don't have any more to present on general fund because there's not a lot of news. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
We can go to the board priorities.
I think we have a slide on this, Claire, back a little bit, and I think the administrator may want to cut it. Yeah, the other slide's fine. I was just going to point out that when you think about general government, there's really kind of 3 buckets. There's the platform functions of admin, finance, HR, IT, corporation counsel. We're just the part of the organization that allows everybody else to get their work done. There's elected officials, and then there's outside agencies. Outside agencies are starting to bring their asks to us, and they'll be making presentations to you in July and August. We will have rounded up all of their asks by the June meeting, and we'll present you with basically a grid that shows you what organizations are asking for what. That'll be in June. But these are the organizations that you can think about in terms of what general government priorities are and how those might connect to broader board priorities.
As we talk board priorities, as we look at the overall reaching board priorities and the priorities for general government to think of, and the priorities that we look at naturally are, 1, a stable levy, keeping that levy stable while still completing our CIP projects. That's the bonding program we have to keep all that done. This committee might want to advocate more at the state level on funding on these different programs or that. We're watching naturally health and human services daily on those for grants and what's being cut, what's not being cut, what's being cut and what's being reinstituted on that. Sales tax, as Don mentioned, is a big one. April was up 30% from last year, April. Overall, for the year, we're up 11.2% with that. How that's going to carry on in the next couple months, still unsure. So we're fiscally very disciplined to keep it very flat, everything flat on us. good news is, like Greenway and Turtle Lake, you remember that digester program? They had a back tax, delinquent tax of about $1.8 million with, that included interest accrued on that. Their last payment is coming up in August and they'll be fully recovered from that. So the county will have their money on that one. That's a big benefit right there. So, our fiscal discipline, we're continuing, asking departments, if you have extra funding requests, they have to be a need, not just a want. This is a tough budget year. And we're looking at positions also. If we don't need the position and we can't fill a position or we're getting by without the position. So be very, as Don mentioned, we have the WPPA, coming up next month, for negotiations with that union. So those are kind of our priorities. And the other big one is naturally the health fund and how we're going to rein in that one and what we're going to do in the future on that one. So there'll be more to come on that, but our priorities are a flat, stable levy. That new construction typically is 1.34%, 1.35. Doesn't net us a lot, but we're looking at all our options on those. So that's kind of our fiscal priorities as we're moving forward for general government. If you guys can think of other ones that you want to pursue, that's fine. We can talk about it at our next committee meeting also. We'll keep you informed on what it looks like for the federal cuts coming in and out.
Everybody's good? All right. How about the zoning committee?
Sure, Chair. I handed out just a simple zoning revenue over expenses. After the last meeting, I understood you wanted to take a look at the permit specifics. Just real briefly, to go through the revenues, you can see that septic and land use permits, it's nothing overly alarming. We were up a little bit in septics, then up 4%. We processed, I think, 966 land uses in 2023 and 1,011 in 2024. I do comment on the, I noted the zoning salaries in totality with benefits. So you'll see, and I realize this general government, obviously the Environmental Services Committee took a look at workload, permits per person, all of that, and what constituted the need to have a feasible zoning department that could process things efficiently and effectively. But you'll see the revenues are over the expense for salaries. And even with a 15% overhead, we're still substantially within the black in that department. Adding that position has really made the department function, and looking across the state, again, with what's probably considered an average permit per person, we were way over that in Polk County zoning. And so even though this position was able to process some of those permits and handle complaints that were previously on the back burner, we're in the black and moving forward. So is there any questions on that particular position or what's happening?
The question I'd asked Sarah last time was, I want to know what the difference in permits were from the new person. So the new person take on 233 permits. What did we take away from somebody else? And that's not answered on here.
Well, those would have been obviously handled by a already busy staff.
Okay.
Dan, and that 233 permits is really just like, overflow help and working through daily functions when 157 complaints is obviously a lot of the busyness of that position and handling those 103 resolved issues. I realize those are largely in towns that have counties, have county zoning, junk and travel trailers that are being addressed, and those things take time. But that's where the community value is in enforcement. But the first year in, again, is looking at the dollars and cents as general government committee does. our revenues are over our expenses.
And of lately, right now, we're getting a few more towns that are coming in with their list of compliance issues
Oh.
to be addressed.
Absolutely.
They hear that we have the position now, so now they're coming in with their list to
Well-
take care of, so.
For several years, it's just that compliance was put on the back burner with I mean, literally, there was not enough staff in that area. And one of the first analysis, that we did when I came back on board was just to look at the team and where some of the holes were. And that was one of the first things I heard. But yeah, just recently Eureka came in with their list. The town chairmen are definitely more involved back and forth. I'm attending the town association meetings, just trying to be present and available. Been asked to attend several town meetings as well. Town of Clayton is coming up. So just looking at the dollars and cents, I understood. I know Supervisor Hall asked for it to be on the agenda from now until the end of the budget. So if there's anything additional I can provide, I realize it's, I'm open, come on in anytime, and I'm willing to look at those dollars. But as far as like the analysis on the position or all of that, obviously I'm working through the Environmental Services Committee. You guys are looking at the dollars and cents and be black and white that we're okay right now.
How do you feel our service has been to our contractors, our landscape contractors?
Well, there's changes in the ordinance. So, I mean, I worry about just getting that information out to them. But I think overall, from what I heard in a several-hour meeting with one particular contractor, I mean, the phone calls are being answered more swiftly. We're getting out there as fast as we can. So I do think that service the timeliness of the service is increased.
Probably take this offline, but I've heard quite the contrary.
I think that again, some of those things that you're hearing are probably specific to the ordinance changes, probably coming down from the state and the Department of Natural Resources. But we could take it offline, Dan. I appreciate that. Any other questions on the revenues over expenses?
Well, I guess I look at the revenue, so the septics were up 2.6%, land use was 4.3. Roughly, that's like $15,000. And compliance, I mean, you're not gonna generate revenue from compliance typically. So I get that you're not taking more from, like, you have the revenue within the department, but ultimately, the revenue that we've had is diminished from our budget, from the position, from adding the position. So we talk about how, expenses are going up and our revenues are staying the same or going away. We're gonna be hitting our head against the wall every year trying to make the budget work. And so I guess if it's not working how it was posed to us to, I think we need to cut our losses earlier than doing it
Yeah.
every year.
I can appreciate that. I mean, if the board takes a look at the compliance piece and takes a look at all of that, because from an administrator's point of view or from the division director point of view, I'm just trying to make sure that we can provide the best service for the amount of money that we make. And
Sure.
and I'm improving that. So like if I can afford 10 people in there, with the amount of money that we make, because that's the idea of fees and permits is not to generate a huge surplus in revenue for, the idea is to provide the service to the constituents and to the towns and the municipalities that have that service. So,
But I think in comparison, when you're looking at a full budget of the whole county, there might be other departments that are getting funding cut from the state and federal agencies that really need positions for children's safety and all these other things that go on in our county, not just people's tall grass and weeds and where they want their rocks placed on the lake shore and these other things that are very minor nuisances in our county compared to
yeah,
the livelihood and safety of our members.
it's just that people pay a permit to have those things and those rocks and those things looked at. Supervisor Hall, I certainly am not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying that that's what the permit fee and that's what's there. And we're mandated to do some of those things from the state of Wisconsin as well. So, if there's,
The tangible revenue is the fee that comes in from the permit. The intangible cost that we're saving with compliance is the litigation cost and that type in the background, running those issues. So, I mean, that's something you can project those numbers, you can do all kinds of things depending on how far it goes in the court system, but those are numbers that you've come into compliance with, where the savings is.
Sure. I guess I would speak in favor of keeping that position because it's more or less broken even, or it's fairly close anyway. And it's such a benefit to the towns. I mean, under county zoning and all, then I believe you are in Lincoln, Jay, and we get these calls and we don't have anybody from the town level to send out. And even if we do, all we can do is talk to somebody about it and tell them they need to go to the city, follow the zoning. If we're gonna have these rules and regulations and permits, without any kind of compliance follow-up, they're meaningless.
well, and I guess just one final comment is that I think the fees that are paid in those permits clearly show that they're covering the staff expenses. So, and that's what they're intended to do. So unless I'm given other direction, that's where we're at. Anything else, Chair?
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on. What's, going on with our resolution 1525?
I think this is the third time we've had it on the agenda, and this is your opportunity to move the financial policy draft, which you had in your packet. And if anyone would like a copy, I have a few print versions. Be your opportunity to either direct administration to make changes or to move it on to the board. The last time we had a substantive discussion on it, we got some input, not only from the committee, but from Kim O'Connell, Chairperson O'Connell, and we believe we have incorporated all that feedback into the draft that you had in your packet. And administration believes it's ready to move forward to the board. We'd be happy to address any questions that you have or concerns. And if we need to take another round at it, we're willing to do that. But from our perspective, we think we've shopped it with you all, shopped it with other supervisors, and gotten some great feedback and incorporated it into the document.
They want to move on it?
I'll make a motion to send it to county board with approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Chris? So work plan.
Look kind of full.
It is budget season.
Needed to be added or deleted from it?
We'll just have more information on the budget and where the budget stands on there. And then we can bring up information on the recycling charge. We can bring that up because that'll be part of it also. And how that's working for us.
I see we had the WPPA negotiation discussion on for May. Could we have had that on the agenda and had a closed session?
We're not ready for it yet. It'll be in June.
All right, how about items for our next meeting?
Did you say recycling will be on the next meeting?
Yep.
That was not on the agenda for another meeting.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yes, because we'll have information on outside agencies for you.
All right, got one item to go.
Make motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor? Right. Stand adjourned at 9:00.